I'll now call this 11th meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts to order. I would ask the camera people if they would conclude their... They still use the term filming? I don't know. You worry these days, you get older. I thank them for being so cooperative. Appreciate that. All right. We have two orders of business. The first one is committee business, and I'm seeing a hand from Monsieur Caron.
After Mr. Saxton, s'il vous plaît.
After Mr. Saxton, please.
That item? Very well. Good. Hearing no other concerns off the top, then I will call item number 1, which is indeed committee business. That would be the notice of motion submitted last Friday by Mr. Saxton. Unless someone has objections, I would rule that this motion is in order, and therefore would turn to Mr. Saxton to present his motion and offer opening comments. Mr. Saxton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All of my colleagues should by now have a copy of the motion in front of them. I will read it to them briefly. The motion is that on November the 2nd, 2011 at 3:30 p.m., the Standing Committee on Public Accounts hear from Tony Clement, President of the Treasury Board and Minister responsible for FedNor, and John Baird, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Deputy Ministers of Industry, Canada, Transport and Infrastructure and Communities, and the Secretary of the Treasury Board for 2 hours to answer questions on the Spring 2011 Auditor General's report on the G8 Legacy Fund. I think that all of my colleagues would welcome this opportunity, and I ask for your support in having this motion adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saxton. And Mr. Caron, you asked to speak second to this. You have the floor now, sir.
No, actually, it's on something different.
Oh, on something completely different. Very well. Are there any other speakers? Monsieur Belanger.
Will that meeting be televised, Mr. Chairman? Will it be televised? Will that meeting be televised?
My understanding is that it's going to be televised on Wednesday. So if there's any change to that, I assume that I would hear first and then the committee would hear immediately after. But my understanding is it will be televised. Further discussion, further comment, further questions? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Thank you. Down. Those opposed? Motion's carried and so ordered. Thank you. Next order of business. Did you want the floor prior to our second order of business, monsieur? Oui. Okay. You have the floor now, sir.
En fait, deux choses.
I have two things. First, we did receive the motion on Friday afternoon. Mr. Cramp had given us a heads up, and so I understand how this happened. But what I don't like is the fact that the background documents for today's meeting were received by me only at 8:40 this morning. And this was information from the government about how the process was carried out, all of the background information, in fact, on this afternoon's meeting. And obviously, that didn't leave much time to get through the information. We had some time to prepare questions, but we would have liked to have this background information ahead of 8:40 this morning. So I would really like to have this information more quickly, and I would like the government side to explain why this information came so late when it should have been available last week. Why did we receive it only this morning? That's my first question, and I will have a second one afterward.
Side to comment if they wish. Mr. Saxton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for Mr. Caron for asking the question. First of all, we did not receive this information until Saturday, so we got it to you at the first possible opportunity. I understand that it is very short notice, and we do apologize for that. We ourselves didn't get it until Saturday, and I didn't get it till this morning because I wasn't here on Saturday either, so we do apologize for the short notice.
Mr. Caron.
Parce que le document lui-même est inutile.
Well, this document was available so late that we couldn't really have a chance to figure out whether the questions that we might want to ask are actually answered in the document. So I can understand that there may have been comfusion on the Conservative side, but this is an important meeting, and I think in the future you're really going to have to do things differently if the committee is going to be able to do its work properly. Can I move to my second point? I would like to propose a notice of motion.
Necessary?
Pas grand-chose qu'on puisse faire.
Okay, good. That's concluded. You still have the floor.
Yeah, le deuxième point, c'est que j'aimerais...
My second point is that I would like to present a notice of motion for Wednesday. We are going to be hearing from Mr. Clement and Mr. Baird at the next meeting, and I would like at the end of the meeting, we're going to be discussing our issues with them, and I have a copy here for the clerk, that the following report that the report that was introduced in the third session of the 40th Parliament be considered adopted, that pursuant to Standing Order 109, that this be done. So I'm talking about Chapter 3 from 2009, Chapter 2 from 2010, Chapter 1 from Chapter 10, Chapter 1 from the fall of 2009. These are the 6 chapters, in fact, that were dealt with in the Public Accounts Committee in the last session. And so all we need to do is to table them once again to the government to get an answer, get a response from the government. And so pursuant to the so we're dealing here with the various chapters, Chapter 3 on the Parliament buildings, Chapter 4 on conflict of interest, Chapter 5 on oversight of banks, Chapter 6 military helicopters, follow-up to the recommendations we made, the report by the Auditor General.
We have somebody here, a witness is here, and in the interest of time, perhaps this is something that could come up at the steering committee.
I'm almost finished.
Done, and then I'll make a quick comment and we'll move on. But your point's taken. Mr. Caron, if you would, please.
Le rapport de la vérificatrice générale.
So the report by the Auditor General on the Public Service Integrity Commissioner, the Chapter 9, which is on the pension and insurance for the RCMP, and the Public Accounts of Canada 2010, and that testimony heard and documents gathered by the committee be taken into account, and that we have a meeting in November to deal with these studies. I think that the formulation is familiar to colleagues. Since we can't do this for October, we will do it for November.
In fact, there's no further action need be taken on this, up to and including my ruling as to whether it's in order. But I have allowed you an opportunity to place it. That notice of motion is now before us, and we'll deal with that going forward. If there are no other further interjections, then I will move us to the main purpose of our meeting today. Hearing none, I will assume that I have the support of the committee to move forward. Therefore, may I first of all welcome Mr. Michael Ferguson, who is the nominee for the position of Auditor General of Canada. Welcome to our committee, sir. I did have a chance to have a couple of words with you ahead of time, and I want to let the committee members know that I expressed to Mr. Ferguson that while questioning may indeed be tense and tough from time to time, there are lines of fairness, and that if he's concerned those lines are being crossed, he can raise them as a concern with me, or he may look to me to get an indication of whether or not he has to comply with what's been put forward, or whether he needs to continue in that particular vein. I just want to make sure that that Mr. Ferguson understands that it's not the whole world against him here, that he has rights to as a citizen, and I wanted to say that publicly so that if colleagues had any concerns about the way I was going to approach this, you can raise that with me now. Hearing none, Mr. Ferguson, again, welcome, sir, and I know that you have opening comments, and I will turn the floor over to you to make those comments. You now have the floor, sir.
Bonjour, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very honored to be here today as the nominee for the next Auditor General of Canada. The role of Auditor General of Canada is a very significant one in the accountability structure of Canadian democracy. My name has been put forward before you after a lengthy selection process conducted by the government. But I want to assure this committee that, having been Auditor General in New Brunswick for 5 years, I fully understand that the position is that of an agent of Parliament. Despite the fact that the selection initiative legally lies with the Government of Canada, both Houses of Parliament must approve the appointment. If my appointment is approved, my allegiances will be to Parliament and to the ethics required by my profession as a chartered accountant. I firmly believe that this position can only be performed in a completely independent and objective manner. Parliament gives the government the authority to execute certain functions and provides the government with the budget appropriations to do so. The Auditor General's primary task is to provide Parliament with information that it can use in fulfilling its oversight responsibility. Let me begin by saying that I am well aware of the importance of your committee as the primary interface between the Office of the Auditor General and the House of Commons. Parliament established the office and position of the Auditor General in statute and has laid out in statute the Auditor General's powers, duties, and functions. Under the Act, the Auditor General's primary task is to examine the financial accounts of the government and, through your committee, to provide Parliament with information it can use in fulfilling its responsibility to hold the government to account. In the past, I have attended joint national meetings of Auditors General and public accounts committees. My impression from these meetings has always been that the Federal Public Accounts Committee has always been one of the most effective in the country. It is very important that the Office of the Auditor General and the Public Accounts Committee have an effective working relationship. I hope that the discussion we will have today will help to establish your trust in me, a trust that we will jointly require in order to have our work together bring about the results Canadians expect from the Auditor General's office and from this committee.
Information gathered through a rigorous and objective process to Parliament, so that Parliament in turn can hold government accountable for its delivery of services to Canadians. The Auditor General also provides insight into how the government can provide those services efficiently and with due regard to economy. The Auditor General helps to ensure that sound accounting practices are followed in the government's financial statements and that robust financial controls are in place across government to ensure the responsible use of public funds. It's important that the findings and recommendations of the Auditor General be evidence-based rather than expressive of opinions or emotions. It is not the Auditor's function to debate policy. My definition of the success of this role would be consistent with the strategic outcome and expected results that have been itemized in performance reports issued by the Office of the Auditor General of Canada in the past. That is, contributing to a well-managed and accountable government for Canadians by helping to keep Parliament well-informed and engaged. This is achieved by performing work that is relevant to members of Parliament, the citizens of the country, and other stakeholders of the office. The Office of the Auditor General of Canada has experienced many well-noted achievements in the past. I especially want to acknowledge the superb work accomplished by Ms. Sheila Fraser during her term as Auditor General. It is not easy to have to follow someone of her standing in this role. She conducted herself with dignity, integrity, professionalism, and excellence. My goal will be to build on her excellent work, just as Ms. Fraser was able to build on the exemplary contribution made in the position by Mr. Denis Deshotels. There is a tradition of excellence in the office, and I commit to striving to uphold the standard set by those two remarkable public servants. As far as my personal experience is concerned, I served 5 years as Controller and the past year as Deputy Minister of Finance and Secretary to Board of Management inside the New Brunswick government. I also served 5 years between 2005 and 2010 as the Auditor General for the province, reporting to the New Brunswick Legislature. I believe that this experience gives me insight into how government operates from the inside, as well as experience in objectively auditing government. I am not new to the government auditing world. In order for this committee to be comfortable with how I will approach the role, I am fortunate to have been the Auditor General of New Brunswick for 5 years, so my approach and performance is a matter of public record. I am also in my 3rd term serving on the Public Sector Accounting Board, the organization that establishes accounting standards for Canadian governments, and I served 1 year as President of the New Brunswick Institute of Chartered Accountants. I
am not unknown to the Office of the Auditor General of Canada. I have worked with some of the staff of the office in the past when I was Auditor General of New Brunswick. I have also worked with the current interim Auditor General, John Wursuma, in other professional capacities, in particular on the Public Sector Accounting Board. I am confident that if appointed, I will have the very good fortune of joining an organization that is widely respected and that, from my vantage point, appears to be very well run. I would not expect to have to make significant changes to the operations of the office. In fact, from an operational perspective, I believe that my main task will simply be to stay the course. I have already referred to two of the most important values for the Office of the Auditor General, which are independence and objectivity. The Auditor General must act with independence and objectivity through the protections and mechanisms provided for in the Auditor General Act. As a chartered accountant, integrity, due care, objectivity, and independence are also expected of me as professional requirements in the execution of any work I perform. I now want to recognize one challenge that my candidacy presents, which is that I am not yet bilingual. I am from a bilingual province where the equality of both official languages is always a top-of-mind consideration in policy making. However, I have not yet personally attained proficiency in the French language. I understand that in order to be properly respectful of Parliament and the citizens of Canada, I will need to improve my French language capability. I am committed to doing so. I have already been assessed, and I am already in the process of upgrading my skills in the language. I would like to close my comments by simply reiterating that as Auditor General, one must be diligent in the protection of the independence and objectivity of the position. And I completely understand that the position is an agent of Parliament. I am here today to answer your questions. I want to provide you with the information that you need about me to properly consider my nomination. I sincerely hope that when we are finished, you will be in a position to approve my appointment. Thank you, Chair. I am now ready to take your questions.
Ferguson, I appreciate your opening remarks. Remind committee of a couple of things. One, we will commence comments and questions in the rotation as per our usual, but also a reminder that this meeting itself was optional. We didn't have to hold this. The committee decided to hold the meeting. Likewise, there is no obligation on the committee to act upon any result of this meeting. However, we do have the option of reporting to the House, and within that we can acknowledge that we had this hearing and whether or not there is a recommendation, yea or nay. All of those are optional and are up to the committee and will be decided by majority at the appropriate time. All clear? Good. With that, we will begin the rotation, and Mr. Saxton, you, sir, have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Ferguson, for coming here today. As you can see, there's no shortage of interest in your nomination and you being here today. Mr. Ferguson, Canadians expect their Auditor General to be the most qualified individual for the job, someone who has a proven track record of independence, merit, fiscal responsibility, and fortitude. We know that you are well respected in New Brunswick for your abilities, but the Auditor General of Canada is a much bigger role. Quite simply, why do you believe that you were nominated for this important position?
Thank you, Mr. President, or Mr. Chair, for that question. Fundamentally, I think what I bring to the table is a well-rounded set of experience. In the human resource world, there is a concept referred to as 360-degree feedback. And I think if you look at my history in the province of New Brunswick, you will see that I went from a position being controller in the province of New Brunswick, which is a position that receives recommendations from the Auditor General's office and has to implement them, to then being the Auditor General for 5 years and having to be in a position to make recommendations that I felt would be and could be implemented, to now the position of Deputy Minister of Finance, where in fact I am in the position of having to try to implement some of the recommendations that I myself made. So my experience is broad. I did spend 5 years as Auditor General of New Brunswick, and as I said in my opening comments, my performance in that role is a matter of public record. I do not have a lot of experience with the federal government or federal departments from the inside, but in New Brunswick there are many points of contact with the federal government, and so the perspective that I bring to the federal government is one of a stakeholder and of observing many topics and many points of interest between one of its main stakeholders, one of the federal government's main stakeholders being a province and the federal government itself.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson, former Auditor General Sheila Fraser has said, and I quote, "He will be a very good Auditor General. He is very capable, a very nice person, and I think once parliamentarians get to know him, they will appreciate him." Now, you have made a commitment to become fluently bilingual in your role as Auditor General of Canada. Mr. Ferguson, you are also the Auditor General of a bilingual province. Pouvez-vous nous dire une fois de plus?
You tell us again what plans you have to improve your knowledge of French. I recognize the importance of being able to communicate in both official languages. As mentioned in my introduction, I have not yet attained sufficient capability in French, but I am aware that in order to properly respect Parliament and the citizenship of Canada, I have to improve my linguistic skills in French. and I am determined to do so. I have made a commitment to learn French because I feel it is important. I have made an effort over the past few years to learn French, and I have made progress. I think I have shown that I can learn the language. Thank you very much.
How you were able to perform so well as Controller General, Auditor General, and now Deputy Minister of Finance in a fully bilingual province?
I think the only thing really that I can say to that is I have filled 3 important roles in the province of New Brunswick. I believe I have been successful in those roles. New Brunswick is a wonderful province with a wonderful rich heritage in both cultures. And I have worked in the provincial government for a number of years in those roles. I have had success. My ability to do those roles, it would have been preferable had I been able to speak French in those roles. However, as I say, I think the record will show that in the roles that I have served in, I have been successful.
Thank you, Mr. Saxton. Okay, and next is Monsieur Godin. Sir, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Ferguson. You have said, Mr. Ferguson, yourself, that you do not have fluency in French. Is that correct? You do not master French? Yes, that is true. You applied for this position, and one of the requirements that was gazetted was that to be able to work constructively with various stakeholders such as Parliament, the public service, and to be able to communicate effectively orally and in writing with and master both official languages. This was a requirement, and you read that requirement that was in the Gazette?
Mr. Chair, no, in fact, I didn't. I was approached by the search firm they asked me if I would submit a resume for the position. I was told at the time that in their considerations of candidates, my name had come up a number of times, and they therefore asked me to submit a resume to them.
Quel était le nom de cette compagnie de recherche?
What was the name of the search firm?
The first name is it's Odgers. I believe it's Odgers Bernstein. I'm not sure how to say the second name in the company name.
Comment est-ce que vous vous sentez quand vous étiez vérificateur général?
How did you feel when you were Auditor General of New Brunswick? There were certain policies that the government had and it didn't follow them, and yet you had to follow them. Is that true?
As Auditor General, certainly part of the role is to look at the different rules, different policies that exist for a government, and to test against those particular policies.
Mais si le gouvernement a une politique,
The government has a policy that is on bilingualism and that a person has to master both official languages. Don't you think that it goes against what you believe, and that is that a government has to follow its own policies?
I think, Mr. Chair, I need some more information about the particular policy, as I can't try to audit here at the table a policy that I'm not aware of.
Allez-vous me dire, M. Ferguson, que depuis
Then are you saying, Mr. Ferguson, that since you have been nominated to become Auditor General, that you didn't go and look in the Gazette to see what the requirements were for the job?
C'est vrai.
Yes, that's true. So you were Controller General in New Brunswick. How long? How many years? As Controller? Yes. For 5 years. So you were 5 years as Controller, 5 years as Auditor General. So that's 10 years. Yes. And then 1 year as Deputy Minister? Yes. So 11 years in the public service in New Brunswick in positions in a bilingual province. Is that correct?
In the provincial government in various roles, 5 years as Controller, 5 years as Auditor General, and 1 year as Deputy Minister.
You said that you recognize that in order to serve Parliament and the public in Canada, that you need to meet the language requirements. But in 11 years, you didn't become bilingual. How long do you think it's going to take you to improve your French?
As part of this process, I was tested to see what my capacity would be to learn French. It was determined that I had an above-average capacity, above-average ability to learn French. It will be a #1 priority for me. I have been working on it. I am not a beginner in the language. I still have lots of work to do in it. But I think that I will be able to get to a level of proficiency within a reasonably short period of time, I would say within the first year.
Time has expired. Okay. Thank you very much. And on to our next speaker in rotation, Mr. Shipley. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Ferguson for being with us today. And as I went through your CV, I think it's an incredible CV in terms of the breadth of commitment and also the knowledge that you have. And I'm looking at actually what your Premier has said. He's outstanding. He's a leader. And quite frankly, one of the reasons why I came to him to become Deputy Minister of Finance in New Brunswick at certainly a difficult time in the province's history. And this is the important. I value the integrity and credibility of the man and the quality of the work that he completed as the Auditor General of New Brunswick. And I don't think those words will come lightly from any leader of any province or if it was the leader of a country. And so I want to focus quite honestly, Mr. Ferguson, on what you've done and help us to understand some of the things and how they're going to lead to what your nomination before us is. So knowing that you were the former Auditor General in New Brunswick, you were also the Controller General in New Brunswick. And I wonder if you could just help us understand here a little bit about those positions provincially and how they, as their function, and how they are similar and how they may differ federally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The position of Controller in New Brunswick is responsible for the preparation of the province's financial statements, the operation of the province's financial information system, and the operation of internal audit activities for the province as a whole. I think those types of functions are consistent amongst controllers throughout the country and consistent with the Controller's Office in the federal government, particularly on the internal audit side and in terms of making policies, accounting policies for the government to follow. as I said, one of the largest, biggest responsibilities actually of the controller in New Brunswick is operating the province's financial information system, particularly in terms of its general ledger and accounts payable system, which is a large and complex system that operates for the entire government. So that gave me a certain amount of experience in the world of information technology and having to implement accounting systems. Auditors, whether they're internal auditors or auditors general, have to do audits of information systems as well. So, as I say, I do have some background in information systems and in having to implement information systems. So that's fundamentally what the role of the controller was in the province of New Brunswick. And again, I think particularly for things like policy setting and internal audit, that's very consistent with the Controller General position for the federal government.
Thank you very much. And you've actually touched on a couple of issues that we of this committee under public accounts have dealt with. And so to follow through the position of Controller General then to the position of Auditor General in New Brunswick. Could you tell me a little bit about how does one prepare you one for the other?
As Controller, like I said, I was responsible for internal audit. The internal audits that we did, many of them were in fact performance audits, so they were very similar to the performance audits that an Auditor General would perform. The difference being the audience that receives the report. As Controller and Internal Auditor, the report is designed for the management of government, whereas as Auditor General, obviously, reports are designed to be presented to, in the federal case, Parliament, in the provincial case, the New Brunswick Legislature. So I had the familiarity with doing audits, doing performance audits. The role of Controller was responsible for preparing financial statements. The role of Auditor General was to go and audit those same sets of financial statements, so I understood how financial statements were prepared. And then, as I said earlier, as Controller, I was on the receiving end of audit recommendations from previous Auditors General, and as Auditor General, I had to then make recommendations, and that helped me to formulate some ideas about how recommendations should be made from an audit perspective.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Monsieur Dubé. You have the floor, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would like to thank Mr. Ferguson for being here with us today. My question, well, we talked earlier, and I think people agree about this, about the good reputation of the Auditor General's office with Ms. Fraser at its head. It does a very good service for Quebecers, and I'm thinking here of the sponsorship scandal, which was one of the perhaps highlights of the Auditor General's work as far as Quebec is concerned. Francophones were the ones mainly involved in that issue. We know that interpretation is available, but it is important to understand what is being said and what is involved, and to do that, it is important to have a good understanding of both languages. So if there was a big issue like that that involved Quebec, how would you manage that?
The first thing to recognize is that the Office of the Auditor General of Canada has significant capacity and has significant capacity in both languages. So the work of the office, the importance of the issues to any part of the country will not be affected by by my moving into the role. Like I say, the capacity is there within the office to deal with those types of issues. I fully recognize that the issue you are raising is about communication with this committee, communication with Parliament, and communication presumably through the media to the citizens. That is the weakness that I have identified, and that is what I am committed to working on and to improving my ability so that I can deliver the message effectively. So again, I will admit to you and agree with you that at the moment I would not be able to to deliver that message. I'm having trouble delivering the message in English. I wouldn't be able to deliver that message in French at the moment, but it's certainly my commitment to get to the point of proficiency that I would be able to do that.
Mais je salue vos efforts, effectivement, et je salue.
I commend you on your efforts and the work of the people that are in the Auditor General's office. But language is not something that one learns overnight. As Mr. Godin has pointed out, you spent 11 years in positions in an officially bilingual province. So when you speak to the media, you represent the Auditor General's office, whether we're talking about French Canadians, English Canadians, or whoever. Your work will begin right away. It will start, therefore, before you have time to learn French properly. Your work will get underway immediately. So what are you going to do to speed up the process if for 11 years you did not have a good knowledge of French in a bilingual province? Well, to begin with, I'm not a beginner. As mentioned, I am determined. I have made a commitment to learn French because I recognize the importance of being able to communicate in both official languages. I have made a commitment to improve my knowledge of French.
As I've said, I am not a beginner. I do have a certain proficiency in French. It is still not good enough, and I still need to improve that, and that is my commitment, will be to improve that.
Merci, Monsieur Dubé. Time has expired, and now to Mr. Hayes. You, sir, have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ferguson, welcome and congratulations on your nomination. I, too, am endeavoring to learn the French language, and hopefully someday we'll be able to carry on a fluent conversation together. That doesn't diminish my capability as being a member of Parliament, nor do I think it'll diminish your capability as being an Auditor General, but your time will come, and congratulations on the progress you've made so far. You're a lot farther ahead than I am, I guarantee you. Now, you were Auditor General of New Brunswick for 5 years. How would you say that experience helped you to prepare for the job of Auditor General of Canada?
The basic work is the same in terms of financial statement audits, performance audits, compliance audits, special reviews. The fundamental work that is done is the same. Obviously, and audit is a process. It's a process that involves identifying topics that need to be examined, identifying the objectives, the criteria for conducting the audit, gathering the evidence, assessing the evidence, and producing a report. So an audit is a process. The difference, of course, is the scale and complexity of some of the federal departments versus the provincial departments. On the other hand, as Auditor General in New Brunswick, we had a small group of people. New Brunswick, and I know the number will sound small to federal people, but New Brunswick still has a budget of $8 billion. That's still a lot of money that has to be audited. And as Auditor General in New Brunswick, because of the small size of the office that we had, I had to be quite involved in the audits myself. So I think that gave me a lot of experience in terms of performance audits, financial audits, not just as the Auditor General, but also very much a player in designing and selecting the audits, conducting the audits, and in fact writing the audit reports. So fundamentally the work's the same. The difference really is the scale.
And I agree with what you're saying in terms of the function of the audit. I'm a CJ myself and didn't have a lot of experience in auditing, but have enough to understand exactly what you're saying. Now, in terms of the audit function itself, you know, there's the attest function, the compliance function, and we refer to it as the value for money function. Do you have equal experience in all levels of auditing, or would you say your expertise is in one specific area?
No, I would say it cuts across all types of audits.
Now, you make reference in your opening statement about your approach and your performance being a matter of public record. And I know it's difficult to pat oneself on the back, but, you know, when in a position like this, I guess one has to. And, you know, when I stand there under job interviews, sometimes you're the only person that's going to pat yourself on the back. But can you elaborate a little bit on what you refer to as your approach and give me some idea about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of my approach, I think I would describe my approach as one of being fair, of trying to make sure that I understood and understand the issues in the particular audit, of making sure that the auditors recognize that when making a recommendation, the recommendation needs to be something that can be implemented. So I would always challenge the auditors when they were making a recommendation to say, how would you implement that? If you were on the receiving end of that recommendation, how would you implement that recommendation? So, you know, in terms of technical approach, my technical approach wasn't any different than anybody else's. I feel that I was fair in the approach. I delivered the tough messages when the tough messages needed to be delivered. And as I say, I think that my performance is a matter of public record. I feel very good about the support that I have right now in New Brunswick and the very nice things that a number of people in New Brunswick have been saying about me and about my performance when I was Auditor General. So again, that's a matter of public record. I believe that people have said that I conducted myself in those 5 years with integrity, and I am very proud of that. I'm also very proud of the fact that in terms of the output that we produced in that time period, now that I'm back inside the provincial government as Deputy Minister of Finance, it's been quite heartening to see the number of times that departments are coming forward with changes to their programs or changes to what they are doing and are referring back to reports of the Auditor General from the time that I was Auditor General. Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Ferguson. It's already a minute and a half over. I wanted to let it go as long, but it's getting to that point. I'm sure you'll get another opportunity to finish your thought. I do apologize, sir. It's necessary to move on. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Monsieur Boulanger, you now have the floor, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Ferguson. I am here, and you will see my purpose shortly. I couldn't help picking up on a question by Mr. Saxton and Mr. Dubé, and you referred to your text when you answered in French. Can you answer a question in French without referring to your text?
In French, because I was expecting some questions about my French language capability. So I have prepared some of those in French. My capabilities in French are more in terms of reading and understanding than conversation. Okay. Conversation is where I still have the weakness, and that's what I still have to work on. Certainly in this type of an environment, I wouldn't be able to yet carry on a conversation.
You only have 5 minutes, so. I'm sitting here closely. I want to see if you can understand me without interpretation. Can you?
J'ai ma réponse. Monsieur Ferguson.
I think that answers my question. You said earlier that you did not apply for the position and that it was a headhunting firm that came after you.
Bon. Je vous ai entendu dire tout à l'heure.
I heard you say earlier that you didn't actually apply for the position, but it was a headhunting firm that actually came after you. Is that correct?
Search firm, yes.
Est-ce que je peux en déduire donc que vous êtes.
So I gather that you relied on the search firm to see whether you met all of the requirements, and that you didn't, even though you are an Auditor General or have done that work, you didn't check the requirements of the position yourself. Is that true?
To submit my resume to the search firm. And then it was their job to determine whether I had the skills to take my name forward.
Est-ce que vous êtes satisfait que vous rencontriez?
Are you satisfied that you meet all of the requirements and that did you have that conviction when you applied?
That I went through what I would describe as a very thorough process. That the committee, the selection committee, looked at my skill set and have brought my name forward to you. So, I guess that's really all that I can say about that, is that they looked at all of my skills and decided that mine was the name that should come forward.
Est-ce que vous reconnaissez
Do you acknowledge that one of the criteria was and is fluency in Canada's 2 official languages, that was a requirement?
Really answer that. I mean, if you have a copy of the ad and if you're reading from a copy of the ad, then I'm not going to dispute that. All I'm going to say is that I never did see the official ad.
Bon, Monsieur Ferguson, moi je suis.
Mr. Ferguson, I have been an MP for some time now, and whenever I have dealt with agents of Parliament, I have been able to do so in the language of my choice, which is French. So, do I have to conclude that until you learn French, if we have to have a conversation, we will not be able to do so? We will need an interpreter? And is that what I am to conclude from our conversation here today?
I can conduct a conversation in French.
Reste combien de temps, Monsieur le Président?
How much time do I have, Mr. Chairman? In 30 seconds, then. I would like to know, Mr. Ferguson, who did the assessment of your language abilities, and when they were when the assessment was done, and are the results available?
One was by phone. I don't remember the name of the company that did that assessment. The other was through the federal government language school.
Huh?
When was that done?
Thank you,
Merci, Monsieur le
Monsieur.
Président. Je reviendrai si un autre.
You'll be back.
Come back if I can.
On now to Mr. Aspen. You, sir, now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Mr. Ferguson, and congratulations on your nomination. We all have your curriculum vitae, your resume, and I'm really impressed with your CV and your answers today. It's clear to me that you've had a long and impressive history in auditing government finances, and I'm particularly impressed with your professional activities, particularly in terms of the public sector accounting. It's clear that you have a passion for this. Could you outline for the committee what your current role as Deputy Minister of Finance is?
Yes, it's actually a dual role, Deputy Minister of Finance and Secretary to Board of Management. So it is responsible for a number of things, from establishing the province's budget, both capital and operating budgets, to being also responsible for the Controller's Office, so responsible for all of that type of work that I talked about before in terms of preparing financial statements, responsible for raising the province's debt, responsible for tax policy. I also serve on the board of the Atlantic Lottery Corporation, the board of the New Brunswick Investment Management Corporation, the board of New Brunswick Credit Union Deposit Insurance Corporation. So I am on the board of a number of corporations in New Brunswick that are responsible for large sums of money. And then there is the role of Secretary of Board of Management, which is responsible for all of the sort of Treasury Board type activity that comes through the province.
Thank you, sir. And could you outline how this has prepared you for the role of Auditor General?
I think, as I said before, Mr. Chair, the main aspect of it for preparing me for the role of Auditor General, well, I suppose there's perhaps two. One is, first of all, I am now responsible for a larger organization. The Auditor General's office in New Brunswick is about 23 people, so it was a small organization. Department of Finance is about 210 people, but also looks after, in total, about 600 people, including staff of other smaller departments. So that's one thing. But the other thing, in terms of preparing me, is that I am now responsible to try and implement some of the things that I recommended as Auditor General. And perhaps a third thing was, when I took on the role of Deputy Minister of Finance and came back inside government, I recognized that there were a number of things, I'm not sure quite how to put this, but there were a number of places I wish I had looked when I was Auditor General, let's put it that way.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, have your views on auditing changed as a result of being a Deputy Minister for the province of New Brunswick?
I don't think my views have changed. I think, again, in terms of what it brings to me as an auditor, it tells me when one is auditing a government that there are always places that a government can improve, always processes that can be improved, and as an auditor you need to make sure you're looking deeply enough to find those opportunities and those things that need to be improved. So in fact, I think that's really what it's brought to me, is just that recognition that you, as an auditor, you've got to dig a little deeper.
Thank you, Chair.
You good now? Okay, thank you, Mr. Aspin. Appreciate that. And moving along now to Madame Blanchette-Lamotte. You have the floor, ma'am.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Ferguson, and welcome to our committee. You no doubt know that the report of the Auditor General on the G8 Legacy Fund has been widely publicized. We had many infrastructure projects that were approved. The Auditor General was not able to get all the information that she needed. Apparently, senior public servants were not able to provide all of the information and were not involved in some of the decisions. So I would like to know from you whether the mandate of the Auditor General should be reviewed so that he or she could receive documents at the provincial and municipal levels when they are required.
That's certainly not something that I've given a lot of thought to at this point. I would have to take that under advisement. My understanding of the legislation, and I believe it's very similar to what the legislation was in New Brunswick, was that in situations where the Auditor General does not receive all of the information that the Auditor General has asked for, then the Auditor General is to report that to Parliament. And that ends up really being a lot of the role of this type of a committee and of Parliament. So the Auditor General would have to work within the requirements and the restrictions of the legislation, but when or if the Auditor General felt that that those restrictions were affecting a particular audit, then they would raise, the Auditor General would raise that type of issue with this committee. But I can't really speak to any specific situation. I don't know the fact base behind any specific situation, so I can't give you sort of an opinion on any specific fact set.
Est-ce que vous auriez
Would you have an idea of a mechanism that the government could put in place to make internal auditing easier even when there are parallel processes that are available?
To make internal auditing easier? Did I understand that correctly? You know, again, internal auditing is a process very similar to external auditing. Really the only difference is the audience. So I'm not sure that I can tell you anything in particular off the top of my mind that would say, okay, if we made this change, it would improve the internal audit practice. That's something that I would have to look at how the actual internal audit function was being carried out. It's not something that I could give you a recommendation on at this point. It's something that I would have to look at.
Merci.
Thank you. One of the objectives of the financial statements and the work of the Auditor General is to be able to follow up on the work of the Auditor General. In 2011, there were 2 recommendations from the AG's office to the Treasury Board Secretary, that is, increasing the information in the supplementary budget, and to provide clear and accurate information on the intended purposes of the funding provided in the budget. Would you intend to follow up on that recommendation, and if so, how?
Of the Auditor General. Certainly, if they were recommendations of the Auditor General, then they would be followed up in accordance with the normal process of the Auditor General's office. So I know that they have a process for follow-up. They decide which items to follow up. I'm not sure exactly what that process is, but certainly that process would be applied to any and all recommendations that were made. If I am named to this post, I will definitely stand behind every recommendation that's been made by the Auditor General's office in the past.
The time has expired. Thank you. Next up is Ms. Bateman. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for being here today and giving us the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better and to really have given us purpose to study your CV, which in my view is very, very impressive. I'm a chartered accountant myself, and I really appreciate the comments you have made and truly appreciate that your value to the Crown will be greater because you have worked on both sides of the equation, and that's something that we can be grateful to benefit from. I want to ask you some questions just with an international focus, because I'm very proud that in Canada we're so well regarded as a model, not only within the accounting profession, but when it comes to accountability in government. We have an incredibly open system. We allow the Auditor General to freely examine whatever he or she chooses to investigate, and then to report publicly on those findings. And certainly we as government have improved things based on Auditor General findings in the past. How do you see the role of the Auditor General, your role, j'espère, in setting an example for other countries in the world in this regard, that openness, accountability piece?
I do believe that the Federal Auditor General, the Auditor General of Canada, has very much established a leadership position over the last number of years under Ms. Fraser's leadership in terms of its reputation across the world for excellence in performance audits, excellence in financial audits. I think Canada also has a reputation for having very excellent accounting standards for governments as established by the Public Sector Accounting Board. So I don't think that Canada takes a back seat to anybody, whether it be in terms of the quality of financial statements, the quality of accounting standards, or the quality of the audit work that's done. And I think that's very important for Canada to continue to deliver that message. And for me, as Auditor General, one of the most important parts of that is the recognition that we do have an independent accounting standard setter, being the Public Sector Accounting Board, and it is absolutely imperative that each and every government comply with the accounting standards set by that board so that everyone has confidence that the financial statements are prepared appropriately and that auditors audit to that set of standards. So again, I think Canada doesn't take a back seat to anybody, and I think that the Federal Auditor General's office very much does have a leadership role to play.
Thank you very much. And what kind of work, and I very much appreciate your comments on the PSAB, but what kind of work specifically can the Auditor General, the Office of the Auditor General, do to help other governments, other countries' governments to improve their audit practices?
Well, personally I've been involved in work with Tanzania in Africa through the Federal Auditor General's Office, where we went over and did an assessment of the Tanzanian National Audit Office and its capabilities, particularly in things like performance audits. We went through a rigorous analysis of their methodology, their outcomes, the reports that they produce, and were able to provide them, I think, with a lot of good information. They were very receptive to it. It also, though, taught me quite a bit. It taught me a number of things, you know, that there are a number of things that you can learn from some of those developing countries. One of the things, and I'm quite sure it exists in the Federal Auditor General's Office here as well, but it is something that in Canada we can tend sometimes maybe to lose sight of, and that was every single person in the National Audit Office in Tanzania recognized that they had a role to play to make their country a better place. And I think that I'm sure that that is also recognized in the Auditor General's Office here in Canada, but I think we never should lose sight of that. That is fundamental to why the Auditor General's Office exists. It is to make better management of the federal government and to play a role in making Canada a better place.
I so appreciate your comment that you learned from that experience too. Are there?
I was giving you a chance to quote. We're done.
Oh, darn! I want to follow up. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madame. We move along to Monsieur Belanger. You have the floor, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ferguson, last week, the chair of the Public Service Commission, Maria Barrados, came before the committee, and in reply to a question from a colleague about competitions where bilingualism is required, it said, and I quote,
Language requirement is an essential requirement, and if they don't meet the language requirement, then they don't get the job. Est-ce que vous auriez un commentaire à faire au sujet du commentaire de Madame?
You have a comment on her observation.
Any comment, Mr. Chair?
Merci. Monsieur Ferguson.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson, in the estimates for 2009-2010 for the Auditor General's Office, we have staffing responsibilities, and the sixth is merit. And it indicates that all candidates have to have the essential requirements, including fluency in the two official languages. As was indicated, if merit involves knowledge of both official languages as part of the competition, then do you have a comment on that?
Mr. Chair.
Monsieur Ferguson.
Mr. Ferguson, I cannot assume what the vote will be either in the House of Commons or in the Senate, but according to the comments I've heard, your appointment may not be unanimous. There are 5 political parties represented in Parliament, 5 in the House. 3 of them are recognized parties. And from what I've heard from parliamentarians up to now, 4 of the 5 parties represented in the House will not be supporting your appointment. And yet the position of Auditor General is an agent of Parliament. And I'm certainly not assuming what the vote will be, but it would seem that the only party represented in the House that will support you is the government party. Do you have a comment on that?
There's not much I can say on that. We'll have to wait, I guess, and see what the vote is.
Une autre question, Monsieur le Président.
I have another question, Mr. Chairman. There are a number of people within the Office of the Auditor General that report to the Auditor General, and the Official Languages Act gives those employees certain rights, including the right to work in the language of their choice. They have duties, but they have the right to work in the language of their choice. And in certain cases, that will be in French. Do you believe that your appointment may violate the rights of those people, and those rights are guaranteed by a quasi-constitutional act?
Have the capacity to make sure that every person in the office can continue to work in their language of choice. And I certainly will absolutely be committed to making sure that every person can continue to work in their language of choice. I have, I fully respect that as a right for people. And as I say, I'm sure that the office has the capacity to make sure that that right will be protected for each and every employee of the office.
Comment ça sera respecté dans les relations?
How will those rights be respected if senior in the direct relations between senior managers in the office and yourself?
Determine on that, Mr. Chair, is what each and every person at the senior level, what their selected language of work is. For anyone that has that selects French as their language of work, we will make sure that there are mechanisms in place to fully protect that right. That will be something that absolutely will be protected.
The time has expired. Moving on, Mr. Dreeshen, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Ferguson, for being here today. We had an opportunity, I think, to meet when you were in Quebec City with the National Meeting of Auditor Generals and Public Accounts Committee, and I'd like to go back to some of the things that you would have had to have done with your own Public Accounts Committees in New Brunswick. And I guess really one of the things that you mentioned as well during your remarks is that the trust that is required, and you know, it's in order to make sure that Canadians get the results that they deserve, you know, from the Auditor General's office and from this committee as well. So I just wonder if perhaps you could expand somewhat on the relationships that you had with your provincial counterparts, and how you would ensure that the relationships with our committee remain such that we'll also have that confidence that seems evident from what we hear from so many people, colleagues that have endorsed your nomination.
I always had a good working relationship with the Public Accounts Committee in New Brunswick. I would tend to release my reports to a combined meeting of the Public Accounts Committee and the Crown Corporations Committee. So I always had a good working relationship with those committees. I would deliver my reports to them. They would have the chance to ask questions about them. So I think a fairly similar situation as here. In New Brunswick, I think actually we ended up meeting, the frequency of meetings with the Public Accounts Committee would have been much lower than the frequency here. So, you know, that will be a change for me. But as I said, it is important that the Auditor General and this committee have a good working relationship, and the way that I guess I would express that is that what I will do is bring any report forward to the committee, clearly explain what the issues are in the report, so that the committee has that full understanding of what the report is. You know, I have, as you said, I have been at various meetings of public accounts committees and auditors general, so I have gotten a sense of how different public accounts committees work across the country, and they don't all work the same. And I think that perhaps spending some time reflecting on that might also provide some opportunities to bring some thoughts forward to the committee.
And I think as well, I mean, you spoke of the 360 analysis that you are able to bring to this particular office, and perhaps if you can expand somewhat on the insights that you have, that your audit team has, and perhaps where you should be digging, because of course you've been on all different parts of the spectrum.
And again, like I said earlier, I think the audit process is a rigorous process. It's a process that is designed around identifying what areas the audit team should be looking at. Perhaps doing some scoping work at first to figure out whether it looks like that area really is one where where there could be some significant findings or some useful findings, and then going through the process to identify what improvements need to be made in the particular area. My experience, as I said, has been one of being able to look at government both from the inside and from the outside. One particular insight, for example, is that I know that within a government department, not everybody in the government department may have the exact same understanding of a particular issue. So you do have to make sure that you are asking multiple people as an auditor. It may be that the individual that is directly responsible has one set of understanding about a situation, but in fact it may be that their supervisor knows something else or knows something more about that situation. So making sure that enough people are being interviewed to gather the evidence is one thing. And then, as I said before, it has become quite obvious to me that there are many things inside a government that can be improved. So making sure that the auditors are asking the right questions and digging down to enough of a level of detail would be another learning for me in terms of the different roles that I've played.
Great. Time has expired, Mr. Dreesen. Thank you very much. Moving in rotation, we go to Monsieur Caron.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The notice of motion that I presented at the beginning and that I subjected everyone here to, I will summarize for the benefit of our public that may be watching. When we arrived after the May 2nd election, we had recommendations or certain parts of the Auditor General's report that hadn't been addressed by our committee. We had done some work, but we weren't able to submit our reports. Some of them, some of the aspects just had to be adopted so that we could get a response from the government, and 3 areas still had work needed by the committee. We haven't dealt, for example, with the 2010 report. I won't cover all the areas, but there were the military helicopters and other important aspects. So I would like to know whether in the future, if you are the Auditor General, if you have reports that have important recommendations, what would the result be if the recommendations are not followed up by this committee and if there is no response from the government?
have to sort of know the situation better to give you a full response. Certainly, the role of the Auditor General, as I understand it, is to present reports, make recommendations, bring those recommendations forward. Then, as I understand it, also the Auditor General's office does work in terms of, does do some work in terms of following up on some of those recommendations to see whether government has implemented them. Sometimes, in my own experience, what we would do is, if we felt that the New Brunswick government hadn't implemented some recommendations that we felt needed to be implemented, we might go back and do a follow-up audit on the same area, for example. But certainly the role of the Auditor General is to bring the report forward, make the recommendations, bring the report to this committee so that this committee can then use those reports to ask questions of the government and to help hold the government accountable.
Merci. Brièvement, peut-être en moins d'une minute.
Thank you. Very briefly, in less than a minute, if you can you explain the difference between the mandates, and obviously it's a bigger scope and so on, but the differences in the role between the Auditor General in New Brunswick and that of Canada, not about the size, but just other differences?
The roles are very similar. In fact, when I look at the legislation for the Auditor General of Canada versus New Brunswick, they're very similar. The scope is very similar, financial audits, performance audits, compliance audits, special reviews. The main difference is the federal Auditor General has the sustainable development mandate in terms of the environment.
À ce moment-ci, je vais vous référer quelque chose.
I want to refer you to a quote that I will read slowly. I want to make sure that the interpretation is clear. On the Conservative Party site in New Brunswick, it says that last year the Auditor General, Mr. Ferguson, said that there was a $400 million deficit, and it would be better if more people were working and paid taxes. And this year, the Auditor General indicated that too much tax was being sought and that lower taxes would be better, and that Mr. Ferguson indicated that lower taxes were better for the economy. This was on the Progressive Conservative site.
The context of that quote, you know, I would have to know. I don't remember making those statements. I'm not saying. Well, I don't remember making those statements. I would have to see where that was quoted from to be able to make a comment on that.
Monsieur, time has expired. Merci. Last speaker in rotation is our guest colleague. Welcome, and you have the floor, Mr. Warawa.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Ferguson, thank you for being here. I read your CV, was very impressed. The selection process for the next Auditor General of Canada has been a very thorough national search, and I want to congratulate you on being nominated for this position. Regrettably, there have been some that have prejudged your suitability for this position, and even before you've been here today, they've said that they will not be supporting you, and as I say, I find that regrettable. I'd like to focus on the selection criteria that was established, and there were 28 points. One of those was language skills, and I too need to improve my French, but yours is far better than mine. I'd like to, of those 28 points, focus on them, and I'm just going to go through them quickly, and if you could make comments whether or not you see yourself as being suitable. In the briefing and in CV, of course, it appears to me you are very qualified and very capable of doing audit and would do a good job for this country. But The selection criteria begins with that you would have a degree from a recognized university, preferably from a university specializing in accounting. Do you have that?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Are we really going to go through all 28 of these?
It was, yes, Chair, I would like to do that because I believe Mr. Ferguson is very qualified, and some around the table, surprisingly, are focusing only on only one of those 28 qualifications. Are you a candidate that is highly competent, seasoned charter accountant and auditor?
I believe so.
Thank you. Do you have proven leadership and management experience at the senior executive level in large, complex, private or public sector organizations? I would say yes.
I believe so.
Yes. Do you have experience in auditing complex organizations, including audits and value for money audits and human resources management optimization?
I believe so.
Do you demonstrate skills in strategic management, organizational change, particularly in circumstances where financial and or human resources constraints are major factors?
Yes.
Do you have good understanding of the role, responsibilities, and policies of the auditor, the Office of the Auditor General?
I believe so.
Do you have good understanding of the Canadian parliamentary system, how governments operate, and roles and responsibilities of deputy heads in the management environment of the public service?
Certainly at the provincial level.
Do you have knowledge of current Canadian and international developments within the accounting and auditing fields, including international financial reporting standards, international standards or auditing, and the implications of governments and crown corporations and experience in other jurisdictions with practices such as accrual-based appropriations and environmental auditing?
Yes.
And I could, Chair, I could go through all 28 of these points. I think in the interest of moving along, I think Mr. Ferguson needs to be treated fairly and look at his abilities, his qualifications. As I said, this has been a national search. He has been recommended to this committee, and he has promised to improve and focus on his language skills, but his accounting skills are exemplary, and I think he would provide a great future in auditing for Canada. Could you elaborate, Mr. Ferguson? You said your definition of success in this role would constitute the strategic outcome and expected results that have been itemized in performance reports. What is, could you elaborate on your definition of success?
When I look at what the Federal Auditor General's Office has said in the past in terms of things like that their strategic outcome is to have a well-managed and accountable government for Canadians by helping to keep Parliament well-informed and engaged, I think that is fundamentally a fundamentally sound summary of the vision for the office, that the focus should be on well-managed government, on an accountable government, and that the intended audience is all Canadians. And by Canadians, I don't just mean taxpayers. Taxpayers are one group, but also citizens who receive services from the federal government. And the way to ensure that we have a well-managed and accountable government is to keep Parliament informed and engaged. So I think that that fundamentally sums up what the role of the Federal Auditor General and the Office of the Federal Auditor General is all about.
Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. Time has expired. I was just checking on some of the rules there. You benefited from that. Thank you very much. That ends the rotation of questions. Yes, I see you, Mr. Caron. I have some things to say first. And that would speak to the next steps. As I mentioned at the outset, it's entirely optional what this committee does. You've made the one decision to hold this hearing. There is now a decision to be made as to whether we will report to the House that we have had such a hearing. And the second part of that would be, is there a recommendation contained in there, and therefore what would that recommendation be? I remind committee that the rules provide that we have up to 30 calendar days in which to study this. If we haven't reported to the House within those 30 days, we will have forfeited that right. We will have been deemed to have chosen not to report to the House, and the opinion of this committee will be silent throughout the process, which is entirely legitimate and entirely within the purview of this committee to decide. Are we clear on what our options are? Any questions about procedure? Monsieur Bélanger.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does the committee have the right to hear from other witnesses, for example, the search firm, the headhunting firm that was hired to look for prospective candidates? It seems that they did not uphold the requirements. I don't want to get into difficult conversation here, but there are certain requirements, and I would like to know what would have happened if we had a unilingual francophone candidate. What would have been the reaction across Canada? And we are talking about the basis of our country. These are not unimportant matters, so I would like to know whether the committee could call other witnesses.
Can't comment on. It was actually more debate than question. I think the member knows. In answer to your question, from what I see, and I stand to be corrected by the clerk, but the rules are silent around how we would go about studying the proposed appointment. And in the absence of any words providing that parameter, I would likely rule, if that motion was put, that it's in order. That if this committee decided that as part of its review it wanted to take extra steps or other steps, I would rule that that's within the purview of this committee to decide, recognizing, of course, it's by majority decision. But I would not rule it out of order if that motion was placed. Further on procedure, Mr. Caron.
À vrai dire, avant que la question se posée, j'en avais une.
Well, before that question, I had one about this particular meeting. I would like to know whether, given that this is an important selection process, whether we couldn't just have one more round of questions. We're choosing somebody for 10 years, so I would like to have one question per party as another further final round.
I'm being clarified, and that's why we have clerks. Apparently, the government can move before the 30 days has expired. So there's no guarantee that if the committee took time beyond today, assuming nothing happened in the House while we were here, that would guarantee that that opinion would be part of the consideration. I have no idea what the government's plans are, but apparently they have that right. So I just don't want members to think that the 30, I thought it was too, but the 30 days holds up the process till that it has expired or we have responded. That is not the case. Apparently the government does maintain the right to move this in front of the House at any time. Okay, I didn't hear any further clarifications. I think I dealt with them all, and I heard a suggestion for next steps that there be another round of questions. Were you a full round?
Par partie.
One per party. Okay, I'll take that as a motion. Debate. Mr. Saxton.
The motion one more time, please.
Sure. Mr. Caron.
Well, I move that we continue with another round of questions, that we have one question per party, 5-minute round. So there would be 3 other 5-minute questions. And the reason is that this is an important choice we're making here. I just am trying to justify my motion. This is an important choice. We have a prospective candidate here, a nominee, and he's going to be there for 10 years.
It is with Mr. Saxton. The motion's duly moved. You've heard it a second time. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to say that, first of all, we have no problem with continuing questioning of the witness, but we should stick to our pre-agreed upon order of questioning, which is to then start all over again. So that's what we would do if you wish Mr. Caron to continue questioning. We will start over the normal rotation. That is my proposal.
Now, your motion was that there be one per, and I'll accept, and somebody can challenge me, and I'll think about it harder, but at first blush, I'll take that as an amendment, an appropriate amendment, that yes, you're agreeing. If I'm hearing correctly, it's that you'd agree with the main motion, but you would amend it to say that we would go in full rotation.
Correct.
As our normal procedure. So we'd repeat what we've just done.
Yes. Right.
That's the amendment. I will take that as an amendment.
Until time has expired.
Oh, until the time has expired for today?
Yes, correct.
Very well. Okay, you've heard the motion, the amendment. The amendment is now debatable.
I heard the amendment and I understand the consequences of the amendment. So question to you, Mr. Chairman, what time per intervention? Is it still 5 minutes or are you down to 2 minutes so that all parties can have a crack?
The amendment, as I'm taking it, is that we would do the regular procedure, so we would repeat, be 5 minutes. Okay, further on the amendment. Hearing none. All in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hands. Thank you. Down. Those opposed. Motion's carried. On the main motion as amended, the floor is open for debate. Hearing none. All in favor of the motion as amended, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. Down. Those opposed. Hearing none, motion's carried and so ordered. We'll begin another rotation. Therefore, Mr. Saxton, you now have the floor, sir. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, I want to say that today's the first time that I meet Mr. Ferguson. It's the first time I have a chance to talk with him, both in English as well as in French. And as somebody who has learned French, an Anglophone myself, I can tell you that Mr. Ferguson definitely is not a beginner. I was very impressed with your progress to date. And in fact, I was quite surprised at your progress to date. And if this continues, then I have no doubt that you will very soon be very much conversant in the French language. Now, I would also like to make a quote or read to the committee a quote which I have in front of me. And this quote is, "But however stern he might be, he was always fair and always principled. And you can't argue with this main message to any government of the day, that government must be as open and transparent as possible when dealing with taxpayers' money." This, Mr. Chair, is a quote from the New Brunswick Liberal leader, Victor Boudreau, and he is, of course, referring to the nominated candidate, our nominated candidate for Auditor General, Mr. Ferguson. This is yet another of the long list of testimonials of people from all different parties who have worked with Mr. Ferguson, who have glowing things to say about him. And of course, earlier my colleague, Mr. Warwa, also started to go through the long list of criteria for this position. And it became very clear and evident that Mr. Ferguson qualifies under all of the criteria. The one issue is regarding his language proficiency, and I think that has been already dealt with ad nauseum today. My question to Mr. Ferguson is, during your time as Auditor General of New Brunswick, you ran an office of 22 people and an annual budget of $1.8 million. Can you please elaborate on how you increased your individual productivity to add value to the taxpayers of New Brunswick?
With that small an office in terms of number of people and dollars, we had to be very strategic in how we selected audits. We had to be very strategic in how we scoped the audits. Because the danger was we could have used up all of our performance auditors on one audit that would take 18 months, and then we'd have nothing to report to the legislature. So we had to be very sort of thorough and diligent in terms of selecting what audits needed to be done, in assigning people to those audits, in scoping the audits appropriately, and then in producing a report so that we could end up producing, I think we produced about 4 performance audits a year. So I think our productivity, when you compare it to the inputs that we had, I'm very proud of the amount of productivity that we had, and I'm very proud also of the outcomes and the recommendations that we made in those reports. So we very much were to the bone, and I think that we managed that very well.
Thank you. Now, you have served in the New Brunswick provincial government since 1985, I believe it is. How will you interweave your vast amount of technical knowledge with the soft skills that you have acquired over the years to ensure effectiveness as the Auditor General of Canada?
As I've said a number of times, auditing is a process. Auditing is a rigorous process. It seems in a lot of situations to be a mechanical process. But at the heart of the success of any audit organization are the people. And it is extremely important to build an environment for the people in the office so that they can succeed. One thing that I have been very proud of in my career is that is the many people who have appreciated the way that I've supported them or the environment that I've given them to work in so that they can succeed. So I think fundamentally one of the most important things in terms of making an audit office successful is giving people the environment that they can flourish in, that they can succeed in, and that they're respected and that we help them reach their aspirations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Saxton. And we now have Monsieur Caron. You have the floor, sir.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. I want to come back to the question I asked earlier. I gave you a quote from the Progressive Conservative Party's site from New Brunswick. You weren't prepared to comment on whether you had said the things that I quoted, and I accept that. But it isn't really a matter of whether people should pay higher taxes or lower taxes, but rather the role. When you were Auditor General in New Brunswick, did you feel entitled to comment on the policies? So was that part of the role in the provincial government as Auditor General?
As a rule, we stayed away from policy discussions. We would, if we were doing an audit and we were auditing government's compliance with a policy, and we found that the government was not complying with the policy, we would make a recommendation either that the government either comply with the policy since it was in place or change the policy, but we wouldn't say what the policy should be changed to.
So your understanding of your mandate of Auditor General of Canada would be similar?
Donc, ce que vous avez mentionné, en fait,
what the Progressive Conservative site attributes to you are not necessarily representative of a philosophy you have as an Auditor General when it comes to tax policy. Would you like me to reread the quote?
As Auditor General, I very much believe that a government needs to live within its means, and a government needs to be able to afford the programs that it is paying for. And the reason for that is that it's fundamentally important for the social programs that the citizens of the country need to make them sustainable. So in terms of how tax policy fits into something like that, that's just one piece of a number of policies. But my fundamental umbrella belief would be that a government needs to figure out how to live within its means so that it is not drawing on, it is not incurring debt to pay for services that it's delivering today.
Donc, vous mentionnez une philosophie.
you are talking about a general philosophy, but you don't have a specific comment on what the Auditor General might say about tax policy. You believe that there should be a sustainable tax policy, but you feel that the Auditor General should really not comment on the tax policy of the government in particular.
OK. Une dernière question, si vous me permettez rapidement.
One last question. Ms. Fraser, the outgoing Auditor General, had as a primary task to deal, or an important priority for her was to look into First Nations accounting. Do you have a particular priority for the next 10 years if you become Auditor General?
Work with the office as a whole to determine what the right priorities are for the office to look into. So I'm not going to go in with any preconceived notions about me going in and saying this is what we're going to look at. It's something that I would work together with the whole team to determine what our priorities should be.
Merci.
Thank you. Do I have any time left? 30 seconds. Thank you.
Move to the government benches, and I understand that Ms. Bateman and Mr. Hayes are going to split their time. News to you, or?
He just said if I take it all, it's okay. What a nice call.
Well, I'll tell you what.
But,
you have the floor, and what you do with it for 5 minutes is up to you.
Okay, je vous remercie.
Thank you very much.
And we were just getting started on a good conversation last time about the professional development that you had had the privilege of sharing when you were able to go to Tanzania. And it made me think about the importance of professional development for your team, which, your comments, and I just want to make that a little bit broader question, because your comments about having to be strategic are so appreciated. This government is delivering accountability at an unprecedented level, and it's what we want to accomplish. And when we hear that somebody such as yourself has actually, been strategic and achieved a significant amount, it really matters. What I want to find out is how you engage your staff, because pro rata it's almost as small as your former staff based on the incremental resources that you will be auditing and programs that you will be auditing. How do you engage your staff to get the best possible creativity out of them? And much as you were saying, leading by example, engaging your team, I mean, this is a very particular business, and you need people to be very creative when they're looking. I mean, it's not about you saying you're going to go and audit this. People have to be creative. How do you enhance that? How do you enable your team to be the best they can be in that way? Obviously within the context of professionalism in the accounting profession.
I think the only way that I can answer that is to say that I certainly encourage that type of thinking, the creative thinking, looking for different solutions to a particular issue. I think that I think that's important, and I try and encourage that. Usually, I guess through engaging in meetings and having discussions with staff about a particular issue, and trying to help them explore the situation. But fundamentally, I think the creativity of people comes out when they are simply given the opportunity to use their own creativity. So when they are encouraged to look at the solution from a different perspective, or look at the issue from a different perspective. So that's why I say, in the audit world, one of the things that I would challenge the auditors on is, okay, you have this recommendation, but how would you actually implement the recommendation? So that they have to think of it from the point of view of somebody who's on the receiving end of the recommendation as well. I think too often as auditors, it can be easy, we can take the easy way out and say, the government should spend more money on. And that's just too easy a recommendation. So it's, you know, I think it's simply a matter of trying to open up that discussion a bit and just give people the room to explore their own creativity. In terms, you mentioned professional development. In New Brunswick Auditor General's Office, we did go through a couple of years of budget reductions. And the one thing that I told the Legislative Administrative Committee was, yes, we will take the budget reductions, but we are not reducing training. Because to have a well-run, well-functioning audit office, you have to have people who are current, up-to-date, and understand what the rules around auditing are. And I always felt that the right amount of focus training had to be done, and you couldn't reduce that as part of a budget exercise.
That's so appreciated. That is so appreciated. Would my colleague, have I left some from
Seconds.
Thank
There you go,
so
Mr. Hayes. Rip her up.
Thank you very much. Auditor Generals should value accountability and strong fiscal management. And colleagues, and those who have worked with you, have applauded your expertise in deficit reduction and fiscal restraint. Others have praised the critical nature that you apply to your work, as well as your honesty and thoroughness. Can you share with us a couple thoughts on what accountability and fiscal management mean to you?
One thing, I guess, that I would focus in on is that when I was Auditor General, I had made the recommendation to the previous government that they needed to implement a long-term budget plan. They had made a commitment to figure out, or a commitment to get back to balanced budget, but I felt that they had issued some targets and hadn't issued a plan. Stepping into the role of Deputy Minister of Finance, of course, now means I have to live with that recommendation myself. So we are very much in the New Brunswick government right now trying to go through, or are going through, an exercise, and it's not just Department of Finance. It's really being led out of the Executive Council office, but an exercise to develop a long-term plan that is more than just saying, here's what the targeted deficit numbers are, something that has more information behind it in terms of how we're going to get back to balanced budget.
Thank you.
So, sorry.
No, that's fine. We're a little over, and I have to cut it there, sir. Sorry. No. I have a rotation, unless you have a point of order. All right. Point of order.
I think, given that the time is almost expired, I'd just like to raise a point of order. First of all, I understand that the clerk has prepared a motion approving Mr. Ferguson as the Auditor
I'm waiting
General.
for a point of order. Well, what interrupts the proceedings? Please tell me.
That the clerk has a motion proposing that Mr. Ferguson be approved.
No.
And I'd like to see that.
Well, you're welcome to come over here and have a look at it, but I don't see how that interrupts the rotational speaking. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, because we've got 2 minutes left,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chair,
The
so
committee.
this has to be introduced prior to the end of the.
Well, that's. I have to say, I was kind of surprised when people voted to run the clock, but that's basically what's going to happen under the order of this committee by virtue of your own vote. You said that we're going to stay in rotation until the end of this meeting. So unless I hear something that's a point of order, I am immediately going to.
I have a point of order that I would like to have the clerk present to the committee.
Mr. Saxton,
the
please,
motion that
right
she
or
has
wrong,
prepared.
when I ask you to be quiet, I would hope that you'd respect that.
Mr. Chair, when I ask you
Mr.
to
Saxton,
show a motion, I would hope that you would respect
Mr.
that as well.
Mr. Saxton, you're trying my patience. Now, please, turn that microphone off, please. Thank you. The next step is Monsieur Godin has a fraction of the time left. He will start. I will interrupt him when we hit 5:30. This committee then stands adjourned. That's the way we're going. Point of order. It better be very clear and quick. Madame Bateman.
Point of order, sir. As you know, I'm a new member of Parliament, and I want to understand the process here. I just want to understand, if there is a motion, does that mean, and we're deferring that, does that mean that...
No, there is no motion. There is nothing out of order. The committee made a decision, and the committee's decision is what decides. The committee decided that they were going to continue rotation until the end of this meeting. No, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing any point of order. I am immediately, turn that mic off, please. Turn all mics off, thank you. Turn on Mr. Godin's microphone. He has the floor for about 1 minute.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ferguson, Mr. Warwa said earlier that there was one of the 28 criteria that you did not fulfill, the others you did. In your opinion, given your experience, you want to...
Chair, I have been inappropriately and incorrectly quoted. Mr. Godin has said something that I did not say, and I would ask you to make sure that Mr. Godin, if he's going to quote a member of this committee, that he does it properly.
Very good. I don't obviously have the evidence in front of me. Monsieur Godin, you have like 2 seconds. Say your bit, and then Mr. Ferguson.
Monsieur Ferguson, c'est que vous parliez pas.
Well, the one criterion was that you do not speak French. Mr. Saxton said that your French was much better than his. You did answer certain questions, but...
Now you are misrepresenting what I said. That's the second time you've done.
Turn those mics off, please. Both of them.
I asked that Mr. Godin. I asked that you retract what you said.
Saxton, please.
Retract what you said.
Saxton,
that was wrong.
Mr. Saxton, you are acting dishonorably. Stop it. Yes, you are. You are disregarding the chair. And everyone, please be quiet right now. This committee is adjourned.